So we'll be going over tasks 22, 23, 24, and 25. So for tasks, so we'll start off with our normal welcome and safety and housekeeping, and then we'll review the sessions, and then we'll get into today's content. And so today's content really covers ensuring that continual performance. So we'll look at tasks 22 and 23, which will wrap up the performance evaluation section, and then we'll get into tasks 24 and 25, which are all about improvement. Then we'll do our normal review of the training schedule and cover the resources and any questions that anybody might have. So as a reminder, this is session 7 of our 8 2-hour webinars for part of the Washington State Clean Building Performance Standard 50001 Ready Cohort. And we just want to thank you guys for your participation. So as our typical safety message, please be sure your surroundings are safe. If you're driving, please be using hands-free mode and don't be looking at the screen. If you're in a building, make sure that you know your exit paths. And then if you are at home, please be sure there aren't any distractions around. You are welcome to ask questions at any point in time during the webinar, but we do ask that if you are not asking questions, that you please keep your mic muted so that we can provide the best sound quality for the people attending and for the recording. As a reminder, we are recording all of these webinars, and by staying online, you are consenting to being recorded. And we will be providing a link to the recordings of the webinars afterwards, so you can share it with anybody on your team that's unable to join today, or you can go back and watch it again later. So as a quick reminder of our acronyms, we got SEM, which is Strategic Energy Management. ENMS is our energy management system. SEU is significant energy use. EMPI is energy performance indicator. EMB is that energy baseline. And as we've talked about so much, 50001 Ready is all about the plan, do, check, act, and repeat cycle. So, so far, we've covered all the way through task 21. In session 6, we covered tasks 20 and 21. So we've covered the majority of the tasks, and today we'll finish up with the last ones. So previously, we talked about the planning section, and we talked about the 2 key pie charts. And during those early tasks, 8 through 13, we really looked at creating and understanding the energy performance of the building. So figuring out what all the energy is coming into the building, and then trying to figure out where all that energy is going by end user. And then during the planning section, we wanted to be able to ask and answer the following questions. What energy is coming into my site? Where does all this energy go? What are my energy performance indicators and baselines? And then what are my objectives, energy targets, and action plans? And so we covered all of those. Then we kind of talked about task 13 and the relationship of those, that policy and the objectives and targets, as well as the action plans. So we've got the policy where the objectives, which is the overall direction relative to that energy performance. And then we talked about objectives being more specific and needing to support that energy policy, thinking about things in the long term. Then we talked about targets being something that's specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, timed, and most importantly, they support your objectives. And then action plans really help to support those energy targets and help to build those. So the action plans were the who, the what, the when. And then keeping in mind, is it on track? Is it complete? And were they successful when you've completed those action plans? Really, task 13 was all about the bigger picture and kind of building that energy success pyramid. So tasks 8 through 13 helped to build that success pyramid, and then even adding in that operational controls from task 17, really helping you, sorry about that, really helping you build a strong base foundation of small actions to complete, to helping you complete and get to that energy policy, that overarching goal that you might have. So when we talked about task 22 and various other tasks up to that point, we talked about linear regression modeling. Now this can really be helpful for you to be able to compare apples to apples using normalization to be able to see where you were at when things change from year to year. And so As part of the Clean Building Performance Standard, you have that weather normalized energy intensity that you need to look at. This is a very similar idea, looking at and comparing that energy consumption to be able to compare those apples to apples. As you can see, if in here we've got our model, which is in that blue line, and then the green line is the energy that was actually consumed, and the difference in year 2 is going to be the energy savings, whereas year 1 is just kind of the prediction of what the energy consumption should have been. And as you can see, it's very close in year 1. So you can see if they hadn't done anything, they actually would have increased their energy consumption for year 2. So this is just kind of an example of how you can use linear regression modeling to help you compare those apples to apples. So hopping into today's task, as I mentioned previously, we've gone through tasks 1 through 21. So today we're going to really focus on the internal audit management review, and then corrective actions and continual improvement. I do apologize. Those arrows should be coming from check and act. So these last 2 are really going to be part of that acting, whereas these other 2 are still more on the checking part of the plan, do, check, act cycle. So getting into performance evaluation, we talked about this a little bit last time with tasks 20 and 21, but performance evaluation is all about checking on how you're doing for both your energy management system and your energy performance improvement. And so today we're really going to talk about, are your internal audits and management reviews all set up? And we'll talk about what those mean. So hopping into internal audits. So for task 22, we conduct internal audits of 50,001 ready energy management system in specified intervals and report the results to relevant management. We identify trends in our internal audit results for consideration and management review. And this is relevant to section 9.2 in the ISO 50001 standard. So really, you want to make sure that you have these audits conducted at whatever specified interval that you've set. Could be once annually, could be every 6 months, whatever makes sense for you as an organization. And most importantly, you want to make sure you identify any trends in those internal audits. So if you are getting the same corrective action or same findings, you want to make sure that you're identifying any trends, because you don't want to get the same findings year after year. So kind of connecting it back to the clean building performance requirements, as part of the internal audit process for 50,001 ready, you want to conduct compliance audit of the Washington State Clean Building Performance Standard requirements to ensure that the energy management plan is meeting its requirements. So you want to make sure that you're going through and you're doing all the things that you said you were going to do as part of your compliance. And those compliance requirements are outlined in section 4 of the Clean Building Performance Standard. As we talked about early on, when we talked about those legal and other requirements, this would be a legal requirement for you guys. So you want to make sure that you're doing all of the things that are required as part of the Clean Building Performance Standard for your energy management when implementing a 50,001 ready energy management system. So talking about audits. So in the standard, the word audit has its own definition. And so audits are going to be systematic, independent, and documented process for obtaining evidence and evaluating it objectively to determine the extent to which the audit criteria are fulfilled. Audits can be internal or external, but today we're going to focus specifically on internal audits. Oh, I do apologize. I am getting over a cold at the moment. So, the auditing process is really all about determining that conformity. And so this is really where you're going to check that you're doing all the things that you said you were going to do, that things are working. And if anything does come up, you will then act. But really, you want to make sure this is really all about the checking to make sure that you did the things that you said you were going to do as part of your process. So when conducting an internal audit, there's a lot of steps to the internal auditing process. Um, Audits, you're going to start with planning for your audits. You want to think about developing those procedures, coming up with your audit plan and schedules. And so we'll talk about that in a minute, but as part of audits that we've seen in the past, some organizations like to do all 25 tasks in just one day in one big audit. Other organizations like to come up with a plan and schedule where once a month they will do, 2 of the tasks. And so across a year, they'll be able to get to all 25 tasks with 1 month having to do 3. And so that's kind of just an example of different auditing schedules. And then most importantly, you want to select and train your auditors. When it comes to auditing, you don't want someone to audit, you don't want to audit the things that you've done, right? So you want to try to hire, or not hire, you want to try to engage another team, maybe someone that's not working directly as part of the energy management team to come in and do those audits for you guys. And this is really important because they'll be fair and objective. They're more likely to point out where you might be maybe missing something. So you want to select and train those auditors. And then you're going to do those audit activities. This is really kind of the audit itself. So as part of the audit activities, you're going to have an opening meeting. That's where you will document, it's where you will review all the documents. That's where the auditor will ask, okay, well, show me what you're doing for task 21. Show me what you're doing for task 8. And you'll want to be able to provide those documents very quickly and easily. Then you're going to collect evidence, or then the auditor is going to collect evidence of the fact that you're doing what you said you were going to do. And then they'll probably walk through the buildings, maybe do some interviews talking to people, specifically focusing on SEUs most likely, and then you'll have your closing meeting. From there, the auditor is going to take all that information they collected, and they're going to create their audit report, and then specifically want to highlight any non-conformities. From there, as the energy team, you'll want to follow up on that stuff and come up with your corrective actions, and then also provide that audit report as part of management's review. So again, lots of steps to the audit itself. So some things about an internal audit process. Internal audits, you want to make sure you organize your audit team and develop the checklist so that the auditors are then able to conduct their audits and gather evidence. It's really important that you're gathering evidence and you're not just using hearsay. Then you want to compile. Then the auditor is going to compile that audit results and produce an audit report. And again, as one of the requirements of the management review, you want to make sure that you're providing this audit report to management for their review. And then you're going to process the audit findings and come up with any corrections or corrective actions that might need to be implemented. It's really important to remember that anything that you invoke upon yourself from your energy management system is a requirement. And so those processes and procedures become auditable under your internal audit program. One example we like to give is if you say that you're going to put green Jell-O in the cooling tower every 6 months because you think it helps save you energy, then you better be able to show that you are putting that green Jell-O in the cooling tower. So you want to be able to show anything that you've invoked upon yourself that you're actually doing. And then also, really importantly, you want to be able to ensure objectivity and impartiality of the internal auditing process, and that you don't want personnel to be working on items that they developed, or auditing items that they developed and worked on. So it's really important to get somebody to do those audits that was not directly related to whatever it is they're auditing. So you want to make sure that the findings as part of the audit process are going to be fact-based. They shouldn't be opinions, shouldn't be hearsay. You want to make sure that the findings are direct observations, statements of fact, something that they've seen firsthand. Documents, data, and records are all great. as findings, even evidence, but you want to make sure it's firsthand and verifiable. If all else fails, can you touch it, see it, read it, or hear it happening while you're on site? And then part of the internal auditing process is finding nonconformities. Hopefully you're doing everything perfectly and there aren't any nonconformities, but if there are, a nonconformity is going to be a non-fulfillment of a requirement. And that's going to be, again, nonconformance. So any nonconformities shall receive corrective actions. So if you do have nonconformities, you want to make sure that you're doing something to correct that so you don't have that nonconformity again in the future. So there are various types of nonconformities. So you could have a nonconformity where you're not meeting one of the requirements of ISO 50001 or 50001 ready. So that would be kind of an intent. If the organization doesn't meet its own requirements, so something that you kind of said we're going to put green gel in that cooling tower, you're not meeting that requirement, that's implementation. If your energy management system is not working, that's an example of effectiveness. And then if you're seeing no energy performance improvement over time, that's another nonconformity, because it's really important. You do want to see that continual improvement and so some direct examples of nonconformities would be that there's no evidence of conducting management reviews. One nonconformity that always comes up during the first internal audit is that there's no record of an internal audit happening before. Well, it's your first one, so of course there's going to be no record of one happening, but that is an example of a nonconformity as well. Maybe you have documented and planned operational log sheets that are not being filled out regularly. There's no evidence of the measurement of natural gas consumption for a site boiler, which you determined is one of your significant energy users, as required by your measurement and monitoring plan. Maybe there's no response to a significant deviation for operational control of an SEU, or there's no evidence of competency gap closure for boiler operator certifications. So those are all examples of what a nonconformity could be. As part of the internal auditing process, one of the outputs from the internal audits are going to be a internal audit report. So this will document any specific nonconformities in some kind of auditing finding form. If you guys already do internal audits in other parts of your organization and you have a form that works, go ahead and use that. If not, there is an example of an internal auditing form that we'll look at in a minute that they have created as part of the 50001 Ready program. But as part of this, you want to make sure that you turn over information to the energy management team for action. You want to enter any findings into a corrective action log. So you want to have some kind of log to keep track of those findings. You do want to take immediate actions on any immediate kind of situation. So, if during the audit someone walks by and sees a pipe leaking, please take immediate action to fix that. And then after that, determining what the root cause of that nonconformity was. And then you want to implement any corrective actions. You're going to evaluate the effectiveness of those corrective actions. So after you've implemented any corrective actions, you want to say, was this successful? Were we able to prevent this nonconformity from happening again in the future? And then you might need to make updates to your overall energy management system. And then finally, you want to review those internal audit results and trends as part of management review. So that's all I have for task 22. So we'll hop into the playbook real quick. We'll hop to the navigator first. And so in here, I've got task 22. We conduct internal audits of the 50001 Ready energy management system at specified intervals and report the results to relevant management. We identify trends in internal audit results for consideration and management review. So if I scroll down here to the getting it done for this task, first thing you want to do is appoint an energy management system internal audit program manager. From there, you're going to develop an internal audit procedure that addresses the responsibilities, planning, and conducting the energy management internal audits, as well as reporting the audit results. From there, you want to identify personnel to serve as your energy management system internal auditors and train them on 50001 Ready Navigator guidance, or optionally the 50001 ISO 50001 requirements. And then also train them on your internal audit procedure. Then you're going to conduct regularly scheduled energy management system internal audits to identify areas of success and areas in need of improvement. Then you want to record the results of your organization's internal audits and ensure that internal audit results are reported to relevant management. So if I hop on over here to the full description, in here, this first drop down I have is going to be develop a documented internal audit procedure. And in here it talks about what should be included in your internal audit program. You want to make sure that at a minimum the following is included. So you want to have the purpose of the audit program, auditor training requirements, planning and scheduling those audits, criteria and scope for each audit, process of selecting auditors, conducting your internal audits, including those audit methods, recording the audit results, communicating the results of the audit to management, and then retaining those records and collecting and analyzing any trend data. So that's really what needs to be included in that internal audit procedure. If I scroll on down for developing that audit plan, again, you just want to figure out when the date of the audit is, or dates, what the objective of the audit is, scope of the audit, requirements to be audited, processes or areas to be audited, auditor responsibilities, and timings. Those are all really important. And again, as I mentioned before, you can do all 25 tasks, knock it out in one day, or maybe you have the auditor focus on a couple of tasks every month or every few months, going through some tasks. So there's all different ways you can set that and look at how you want to do those audits. And then we also have this drop-down box with some examples of common audit objectives that can be very helpful as well. And then finally, you want to select and train internal auditors. And as part of that, you want to make sure that the auditors training kind of includes the following. They should have guidance on 50001 Ready Navigator or ISO 50001. They should understand what the objectives of the audit are going to be, and then how to develop and use a checklist, and how to collect and assess objective evidence, and then how to document both positive and negative findings. So that's going to be kind of uh, that's the internal auditing. Again, in here we do have decarbonization and how you can incorporate decarbonization if that's something that's important to you. Not a requirement of 50001 Ready recognition, but I know some of you guys are thinking about going the decarbonization route. So if that is something that you want to prioritize, there are some steps on how you can prioritize decarbonization into your internal audits as well. I'm going to go ahead and hop on over to the task 25 playbook, or task 22 playbook, sorry. So here I've got the playbook. Again, this first section is going to be the same as the getting it done. And again, this is just an example playbook that we had helped develop for Fort Liberty and their campus. So the first thing in here is to appoint that internal audit program manager. So you're going to put who's in charge of that here and what their roles and responsibilities are. From there, you want to develop a documented internal audit program. And here they just have a short little description of what that is. And then you want to make sure that your audit program includes all of the following things. So you want to be able to say yes and check off each and every one of these boxes. And then you want to make sure that your energy audit process clearly communicates the following expectations. Again, you want to just be able to say yes, our audit process does these. From here, we have an example energy auditing template. And in this case, they decided to break it up and look at just tasks 1 through 3 and task 7. And they were doing it in once a quarter, they would do a handful of tasks. And so they have their audit objective here. Who's going to be on the auditing team, you would enter here, and then what the plan of what's going to be covered. So in this case, they have everything kind of written out and with timing on what they want to review. So from here, the next thing is to identify personnel to serve as the energy management internal auditors and train them on 50,001 ready. And so you can enter the name or the name and the title, the department the person works for, and when they're going to have that initial training, and then any refresher trainings as needed. From there, you want to conduct regularly scheduled internal audits. And so in this case, they decided to do them every once a quarter, and they want to conduct during that process, they want to look at approximately 1/4 of the energy management system. Again, program is going to be up to you guys, however you want to do it, however often or not often you want to look at it. You just want to be able to say yes to all of these. The internal audit program manager has prepared an internal audit program that meets all of these. Then you're going to record the results and ensure that the internal audit results are going to be provided to management for their review. And then in here, we have an example internal audit schedule looking at every quarter. They're going to go through about 1/4 of the tasks. So this is one example of how you could do it. And then we also have an internal auditing form. And so you can use this to kind of keep track of any nonconformities, concerns, or positive findings. And so you can use this putting down the organization, the name of the auditor, what the standard is, the date of the audit, and then the location of the finding. You can indicate whether it's a nonconformity, a concern, or positive finding, and then listing the kind of statements of facts about the finding. And yeah, so this document here can be used during that auditing process. This is a blank form, so you can fill it out and record evidence of that internal audit. So this can be a great way to kind of keep track of those internal audits if you do not already have something like this in place. Are there any questions before I hop back into the presentation? Right. So I do have a question for you guys. I have my first polling question for today. Feel free to just drop your answers into the chat. Based on task 22 for internal auditing, what experience level does your organization have? A, we have an existing internal auditing program for other ISO systems, and we can easily and readily add ISO 50001. B, we understand internal auditing of an ISO 50001 system, but we would need to improve and expand upon this to include ISO 50001. C, we have not done any internal auditing and we'll have to establish this program for ISO 50001. Or D, we plan to outsource our internal auditing needs to a contractor. All right. Looks like we got one response in the chat. Feel free, anybody else, to kind of put your responses in the chat as well. Yeah, so I'm seeing a couple of C's, and that makes sense. A lot of organizations, a lot of industrial organizations that we work with will have other ISO programs, but more in the commercial and kind of community college and campuses, you're unlikely to have other ISO programs. So, internal auditing is a great way to make sure that you're on track and doing the things that you said you're going to do, though. So, we'll talk more about them during the one-on-ones if nobody has any questions specific they want to ask for the group. So hopping into task 23. Task 23 is going to be management review. So for task 23, top management periodically reviews the 50,001 ready energy management system and our organization's energy performance to ensure its continuing suitability, adequacy, and effectiveness. So as part of kind of connecting it back to that clean building performance standard requirements, as part of the management review process, 50,001 ready kind of idea, you do have, as part of your clean building performance standard, you do have that the building owner should review and sign the energy management plan annually. And so you do have some specific documents that they or so specific forms that should be filled out and reviewed and signed by that energy management. And so, again, the standard itself does say in the clean building performance standard in 5.1.2 has the energy management plan shall incorporate all of the following, and that the building owner shall review and sign the energy management plan annually. So just kind of connecting those two. Management review. So management review is going to be engagement from top management in reviewing your ENMS and energy performance. And as well, they want to be able, as well as asking and answering the following questions. So they want to be able to say, how have we done? Where can we improve? What do we need to change? And do we have enough resources in the right places? And so those are really important things that management shall be considering. And these are all shalls in the standard itself. So you want to make sure that management is looking at those things. So sorry. So for periodic review, um, they should be regularly talk. Sorry, I cannot speak today. Regular topics should cover the alignment of the ENMS with the strategic direction, as well as prioritizing performance improvement or prioritized performance improvement opportunities. Others as appropriate, looking at those audit trends as well as that energy performance improvement. They should, you want to be able to document the discussion that's had, any decisions that come from it, and any actions that might need to be implemented. So it's really straightforward. It's all about management looking at the energy management system and having that review. I'm gonna go ahead and hop on over to Navigator real quick. Sorry, I have too many windows open on my computer. So hopping on over to task 23. So task 23, top management is going to periodically review 50,001 ready energy management system and our organization's energy performance to ensure its continuing suitability, adequacy, and effectiveness. So the first thing you want to do is define the intervals at which top management will review the energy management system and energy performance. Then you're going to identify who participates in that management review. Then you want to compile the relevant data and information. Those are going to be the inputs to the meeting needed for the management review and prepare the information for presentation. Then you want to conduct management reviews that address all required inputs and outputs. And then you're going to implement the decisions and actions. Those are going to be the outputs of the management review. And then determine if the ENMS continues to be suitable, adequate, effective, and aligned with the organization's strategic direction. And then maintain the record of management reviews. So if I hop on over to the full description here, the first thing you want to do is plan the management review. So thinking about in terms of frequency, how often are you going to have these meetings? Are you going to hold them once a year to go over everything about the energy management system? Or maybe management wants to look at little pieces of your ENMS once a month and have a short little meeting to cover it. What are the means? How are you going to accomplish this management review? For example, are you going to have face-to-face meetings, maybe teleconferences, or maybe it's just sending some emails of reports of, okay, here's what we've done so far. And then participants, at a minimum, your organization's top management and a representative from the management team should participate in management review. But you might need to invite others to join just based on maybe who needs the information, who can take action, or who can provide the resources necessary for those actions. If I scroll on down here to collecting information, as part of the inputs to this so that the management can be able to make their decision process, you want to be able to collect that information. So you want to be able to assign responsibility. Who's going to be top management is responsible for ensuring the management review takes place, but the energy management team is responsible for being able to provide them that information for the review and for reporting to top management. So you want to assign the responsibilities. You want to figure out what information is to be collected, what information is going to help management do their review so that they can say, is this still suitable, adequate, and effective, and aligns with our strategic direction. And so one way to kind of do that, it's got some things to think about. What are opportunities? What opportunities are there for improvement of your energy performance, of your ENMS, of competence, and awareness and communication? Maybe some other things to think about are what strategic changes or modifications, if any, are needed. Um, do the current measures provide the correct and meaningful information? Is there a need to change, add, or delete any current improvement objectives, energy targets, or active action plans, etc.? So these are just some things to kind of keep in mind. Those are the main drop downs I wanted to look at as part of management review. And again, we've got decarbonization, and we do have some guidance on how to incorporate decarbonization in there if it's something that you want to incorporate with your energy management system. If I hop on over to the playbook, um, the playbook here has some helpful things. And so, again, this is the same as the getting it done. So the first thing, you want to define the intervals at which top management will review the energy management system and energy performance. So in this case, they decided to set it up annually, to schedule it for Outlook calendars, and have the reviews take approximately half a day. And that they will increase the planned reviews intervals if there are significant changes that occur. Then there's some more check boxes with some added information in there. And then in here, they've got how is that management review going to be conducted? You got face-to-face meetings, teleconferences, email exchanges, electronic meetings, and then other forms of electronic reviews, or even others. So you could add other things in here as well. Then you want to identify who must participate in the management review. In this case, you want to have top management. You want to have the energy team leader, and then identifying anybody else that might need to be there. Then you want to compile the data that's going to be needed. And so you want to make sure that you're able to say that responsible personnel have provided the energy team with the detailed data and information, a summary that is concise and represents graphically where possible, and then the big picture overview that is still detailed enough to make fact-based decisions. And so on here, we actually have a helpful worksheet where you can assign who's going to be collecting that information and providing it for management review. So these are all the various inputs that you might need for your management review, and there are a lot of them. And in this column, you can set who's going to be responsible for collecting that data and then when you want them to have that data collected by. And then we also have this management review meeting form. And this form helps you, the first part helps you track who attended the meeting. So you would track everybody that was at the meeting. And then in here, we've got some helpful tables to kind of keep track of stuff. So first table is top management. We'll consider the following items during their management review. So management review considerations is in the first column. So this first example is previous management review action items. And then it says, will this included in management review? In this case, yes. But if you decide that you want to have management maybe review only part of this energy management system at a time, but over the whole year cover everything, you might say no if that is the case. But in this case, since they're just doing one meeting, this was included, and then additional information attached. So if you have some additional information you wanted to attach to this document, you could say yes, and then provide maybe the list of the previous action items, any discussion and decisions that happened during the meeting. You just want to summarize them here. And if there are any action items that result from that discussion, you would put those here, and then you would assign them to who's going to be in charge of making sure that those action items get implemented, and then any due date or when the date that it was completed. So you've got a handful of different things in here. The next thing is that the energy performance inputs to top management that should be included as part of the management review. And again, it's very similar. You've got the management review of the energy performance. And so in this case, the first one is the status of the meeting objectives and status of meeting objectives and energy targets. Again, is it included? Is there additional information attached? And then a summary of that discussion, and then any action items that resulted from that. And then getting into the outputs. The outputs from top management include discussions related to the need for any changes in the following topics. So the first one being um, management review output discussion topics, looking at opportunities to improve energy performance. So again, was this included in that management review? Are there changes needed? Yes or no? And then I'm just summarizing any discussion or decisions that were related to that, and then any action items that might result from that. Um, and so that's kind of this energy management review, kind of some tables to really help you make sure that for your energy management reviews, you are documenting the discussions that are happening, and that they are discussing the items that are required as part of the 50001 ready and ISO 50001. You can use this space to kind of provide any additional information you'd like to add. And then finally, uh, after the meeting, you want to make sure the top management is able to say yes to all of these items, that the energy management system is still appropriate to the purpose of the organization, its culture, operations, and business systems, that it's capable of continuing to meet ISO 50001 guidance and other requirements established by the energy management system, that it's achieving the planned results and the energy performance improvement and improvement of the NMS, and that finally it's continuing to reflect and contribute to the strategic business priorities of the organization. And then you just want to maintain any records of those management reviews. So that's really all there is to task 23. Are there any questions before I hop back into the presentation? All right. Well, I'll hop on over into continual improvement. So there are two tasks related to continual improvement. So think about continual improvement in terms of we check if things are not okay, we act to fix them. And we do this in an ongoing method. So again, continual improvement, it's all about acting. So some questions that hopefully we'll be able to answer today is, do you have a strong corrective action program to fix and follow up on nonconformities to your ENMS? And then do you continually improve both your energy management system and your energy performance? So for task 24, it's corrective actions. So task 24, we identify nonconformities and other problems in the 50001 ready energy management system and take appropriate corrective action. So kind of connecting it back to the clean building performance standard, corrective actions are really going to be there to ensure that your 50,001 ready energy management system meets the necessary requirements and continually improves. So one of the things to kind of think about is that you're really incorporating this into those requirements of the clean building performance standard. And keeping in mind that there are some things that you are kind of required to look at as part of that clean building performance standard. So in Annex D1, you want to look at the building envelope to make sure that that you're performing inspections on it at least once every 3 years, and any corrective actions should be taken to address any of those items below. Just looking at anything that might be wrong with that building envelope. So that's an example of corrective actions, but really corrective actions in terms of 50,001 already is more of looking at your energy management system and seeing if it's and correcting anything that's not working in that system. So some key terms for task 24. The first one is nonconformity. It's pretty straightforward. It's a non-fulfillment of a requirement. ISO 50001 defines requirement as a need or expectation that is stated or generally implied or obligatory. And then finally, a corrective action is going to be an action to eliminate the cause of a nonconformity and to prevent reoccurrence. So first things first, if there's an issue that needs to be fixed immediately, take control and correct any immediate situations, fix those right away. If there is a pipe leaking and there's water spewing everywhere, don't let your 50,001 ready management system get in the way of fixing that. Stop the leak first. Maybe you have the chilled water supply temperatures going crazy. Reset the temperature, reprogram occupancy sensors, whatever you have to do to make an immediate fix. Go ahead and fix the immediate problem. Then what you want to do from there, after you fix the immediate problem, you want to figure out why it happened and then come up with a corrective action plan so that you can prevent it from happening again. So some things to kind of think about is one of the things you want to think about when you have an issue was, what was the impact? How did the occupancy sensors not being calibrated affect that energy consumption, with lights not turning off maybe, or providing ventilation to a building when nobody was in it, those type of things. What was the impact as a result of whatever it was that happened? Then you want to think about, do you need further action? Is there an opportunity for similar nonconformities to exist or to occur within your buildings? So, maybe again, you have a sensor fail. Do you have similar sensors in other buildings or on other chillers maybe? So if you do have the opportunity for similar ones to occur, maybe you need to take further action to prevent them from happening. And then really digging deep into, why did this happen? And so we talk about the 5 why exercise to really get to that root cause. And so then you really want to eliminate the root cause and take corrective action. And so typically, by the time you've asked why 5 times, you really can get down to the root cause of the issue. And so because Thanksgiving is coming up, Mike Stowe, one of our other coaches, was explaining the 5 whys to me one time, and he said that there was this story that he was always told where there was this husband and wife, and his wife was making the Thanksgiving ham, and she cut off a big section of the end of the ham before putting it in the pan and then putting it in the oven to warm it up. And he asked his wife, well, why did you do that? And she was like, I don't know. That's how my mom's always prepared it. So that's just how it's always been done. And he was like, okay, that's weird. So then on Thanksgiving Day, they get together with his wife's mom, and he asks her, he said, well, why this like end off of the ham? And she goes, well, I don't know. I've always done it because that's how my mom's always done it. And so then he goes over to the grandma and he asks the grandma, why does she do that? And she said, oh, well, the pan that I always used for warming up the ham was never big enough for the ones that I buy at the store, so I always cut it off to make it fit. And so that just kind of is an example of how you can, once you really ask why, a few times, you can really get to that root cause to really understand there was no reason to cut off the end of the ham if you just had a bigger pan. So just kind of one little example of the 5 whys. So as part of task 25, you really want to, or sorry, task 24, you really want to make sure, is it effective? So it's not enough to just find and fix the nonconformity. You really want to determine, was your action effective at preventing it from happening again? And so it might be appropriate for the internal auditing team member, if it was a nonconformity found during an internal audit, to follow up after some time and check and see how things are doing. See if that nonconformity and those actions were effective. And so effectiveness, the definition of effectiveness from the dictionary is going to be the degree to which something is successful in producing the desired results, a success. And so that's just kind of thinking about, is it successful? Was it effective? So some things you want to think about with nonconformities. You do want to document them. You want a list of any nonconformities from your internal audit. And then what actions will you take to fix those nonconformities? You want to make sure that you're documenting who's going to be responsible, and what the timeline it is to act on those nonconformities. And then you want to plan to follow up. So again, take that, um, come up with the actions, assign the responsible parties, the timeline for fixing it, and then following up after the fact to make sure that it was effective. And then you might need to make changes to the requirements for the energy management system. You might not, but you want to be able to say yes or no if there are changes required. And if you do need to make changes to your energy management system, you want to make sure that you are implementing those changes as well. So that's all there really is to task 24. I'm going to hop back over into the navigator real quick. So for task 24, we identify nonconformities and other problems in 50,001 ready energy management system, and then take appropriate corrective action. So the getting it done for this one is we're going to develop and implement a process for taking corrective action at your organization. We want to define roles, responsibilities, and authorities for various steps in the corrective action process. And then we want to train employees on types of problems and nonconformities to be addressed through implementing the corrective action process. So from there, thinking about the full description, um, you want to, if you open this drop down here for develop the process for corrective action, you want to make sure your corrective action consists of the following elements. So you want to make sure that you control and correct any immediate situation. Again, if water is pouring out on the floor, go ahead and fix it. Shut off the water, fix the pipe, whatever you need to do. From there, you're going to evaluate the impacts of that nonconformity and then determine the cause of that nonconformity. And then you want to act to eliminate the cause and then review the effectiveness of the action taken and retain those records. So it talks some more about corrective action process. Again, those same kind of steps. When it talks about evaluating the impact, it's got some things to consider. How is that going to affect those objectives, energy targets, action plans, SEUs, etc. And then it even has in here an example of the 5 whys. So in here, it's a little probably more relevant to how you'll be using the 5 whys, but in this example, they have an air compression in the compressed air system above that they're talking about. So this whole thing is an example where the compressor was found to be operating at 115 psi instead of 105 psi like it was supposed to be. So when they were trying to get to the root cause of why that happened, the first question was, well, why did the operating pressure change? And so the first answer was because the operator thought it should be. So then the next question was, well, why did the operator think it should be changed? And then because the operator was experiencing problems at 105 that he was not experiencing at 115. So then the next question would be, well, what problem was the operator experiencing? And that was a lack of pressure for the press. And then what was the cause of the problem? Well, it turns out that it was a pressure gauge was out of calibration and indicating the incorrect pressure, which was what was causing those issues. And then finally, well, why was that pressure gauge out of calibration? Should be calibrated, or was being calibrated, or should have been calibrated annually, but records show that it had not been calibrated in at least 2 years. So that's kind of a more relevant example to the 5 whys. And then again, you want to act to eliminate that root cause, and then reviewing the effectiveness and retaining those records. So that's really kind of the nonconformities. It's pretty straightforward. If you're having a problem with something, you want to make sure you're acting to fix it. Let me bring over the task 24 playbook. So for the task 24 playbook, it's corrective actions. So again, this first part here is the same as getting it done that we just saw. First thing you're going to do is develop and implement a process for taking corrective action to your organization. You just want to be able to say yes, that your corrective action process addresses all of these elements. From there, you want to define roles and responsibilities and authorities for various steps in the corrective action process. And then you just want to be able to say, yes, we've assigned those here. And then from there, you want to have communicated roles and responsibilities and expectations for corrective action prevention system across the facility. Again, you want to be able to say yes to these, that the individual assigned to conduct the root cause analysis is the individual assigned to conduct the investigation, and then the individual assigned to act is, and you want to be able to input that information here. You want to make sure that you've assigned the following roles and responsibilities. And so you want to make sure that employees understand what they are responsible for identifying actual and potential nonconformities in their work areas, informing appropriate supervisor personnel, and making any immediate corrections. And then you want to make sure that the internal auditors understand that they're responsible for determining if nonconformities exist in the energy management system, and forming appropriate supervisor personnel, and then making any immediate corrections as well. You want to make sure you train employees on types of problems or nonconformities that should be addressed through implementing the corrective action process. And it's got a few different checkboxes here that you'll want to be able to say yes to. And then this is really kind of the big picture item in here. We've got the significant deviation log. So you do want to retain and investigate any significant deviations, and we've talked about these previously during other tasks as well, but looping back around to those significant deviations. If you do have any identified deviations or nonconformities, you want to track them in some kind of log, and this log can be helpful if you do not have anything else already. So you want to identify what those deviations or nonconformities are. You want to kind of briefly indicate what the impact was, what that cause was, what the response was, and then any effectiveness of the actions that were taken, the responsible personnel, and then the date that it was corrected. So you do want to keep track of all those nonconformities in some kind of table similar to this. And then in this case, they said they used the corrective action slash preventative action request form. And we'll look at that in a second. But if I scroll on down, here it is. So this is kind of a corrective action slash preventative action form, and you can put this in here to kind of track and see how that action is going. And so you can number the action, you can indicate whether it's a corrective action, something that you found to be a nonconformity or something that wasn't working. Or a preventative action. So you found um maybe you found a nonconformity in one building on your campus and you create a preventative action to try to prevent it from happening in another building that's very similar. You indicate what the source was. So maybe it was an internal audit finding for a corrective action, maybe it was a legal noncompliance, etc. So you would indicate which one it was. If it's a preventative action, maybe it was employee suggestion or part of management review, or you could say other. And so you've got that. You just basically date and issue by, and then you're gonna put when you want to see a response date to the nonconformity or corrective to the corrective action, and then who is going to be responsible for it. From there, you're going to put a description of the problem, the requirement it's related to, and then the statement of nonconformity. And then in here, as part of the investigation, the person who's in charge of doing the investigation will put the root cause of the action and potential problems, the how and why of did this happen. They'll indicate if there was any other actions needed. And then the correction with the completion dates, as well as the corrective action. So the correction is going to be I have a pipe that's leaking and I shut off the water maybe, and then the corrective action is going to be what's going to prevent that reoccurrence. Or if it's a preventative action, what's going to prevent it from occurring. And then putting in the estimated completion date. And then if needed, if you weren't able to complete it by the estimated completion date, you do have an extended completion date here. And then maybe a reason for the extension. So maybe you thought you were going to be able to replace a sensor by a certain date, but you needed to extend it out another month because the sensor was not able to come in time. And then you can put the reviewed by and the date. And then after the action is completed, there's some follow-up in here where you look at the results of the action. This is where you're going to evaluate whether or not the action was effective, and then have the results reviewed and the date it's closed. So this is kind of a way to keep track, and then there's a log here that you can log all of these. And so again, as I mentioned at the very beginning, there's a spot where you can have a tracking number, so you can call it 1, 2, whatever numbering system you want to use, and you can just keep track of them here. And so this log is just used to keep track of those corrective action plans. And yeah, that's really all there is to this playbook. Are there any questions about task 24? All right. Well, if there aren't any questions, I have a question for you guys. Polling question number 2. Based on task 24 for corrective actions, what experience level does your organization have? A, we have an existing corrective action program for other ISO systems and can readily add ISO 50001 to our program. B, we understand corrective actions for our ISO system, but we need to improve and expand this to include ISO 50001. C, we do not have any corrective action system. We'll have to establish a program. Or D, we're not sure what to do about a corrective action system. All right, yeah, I'm seeing a handful of C's again, and that makes sense. Um, so when we get into the one-on-one calls, if you guys have any questions about corrective action systems, we can definitely get into more details and talk about those. Hopping into the last task for today, we've got continual improvement task 25. So as part of task 25, we have a 50,001 ready energy management system and continually improve its processes and interactions. We continually improve the suitability, adequacy, and effectiveness of our energy management system, and we achieve and demonstrate continual energy performance improvement. Again, we've talked about this quite a bit. It's the plan, do, check, act, and repeat cycle. It's not just a one and done project. It really is about going in there and continually looking for improvement, looking for where you can make adjustments or make your system work just a little bit better. And again, it's plan, do, check, act, and repeat. That repeat part is very, very important. So really, Task 25 doesn't have too much of a direct connection with the Washington State Clean Building Performance Standard, but if you are if you are seeing that continual improvement of your energy management system, it is going to make it easier to meet the requirements of the CPBS, and we can all party when we meet those requirements. So, task 25 really kind of connects all of the tasks together, and so um, Task 25 really touches on a little bit of everything, looking at those risks and opportunities, that documentation, your improvement opportunities, etc. It really is about kind of bringing them together and seeing that continual energy improvement. And so it's really important when we talk about continual improvement. As part of ISO 50001 and the 50001 Ready program, you shall demonstrate continual improvement of your ENMS as well as you shall demonstrate continual improvement of your energy performance. And it's really important. They changed the word in the 2018 version of ISO 50001 from it had previously been continuous. They changed it to continual because the idea is that you want to see that overarching trend, downward trend, but you might have one month that spikes up a little bit higher than the previous month, but overarching, you want to make sure that you're seeing that downward trend for that continual energy improvement. So that's all I have for task 25. Hopping on over to the navigator real fast. So for the task 25 navigator, again, we have a 50,001 ready energy management system and continually improve its process and interactions. We continually improve the suitability, adequacy, and effectiveness of our energy management system. We achieve and demonstrate continual energy performance improvement. From here, the getting it done, first thing is check that processes are in place for reviewing and updating specific parts of the ENMS on a regular basis, and that relevant decisions on the how, when, and who are made and implemented. Then you want to confirm that the needed connections between the process of the ENMS and how the organization manages change are present. You want to review processes for integrating the ENMS requirements into the operations business organization's business operations and practices. Then you want to confirm that top management promotes continual improvement as part of its organizational culture and meets and demonstrates its responsibilities. And then finally, you want to ensure you have processes in place to continually improve the ENMS and energy performance. If I hop over here to full description, there's quite a few drop downs in here, but I want to focus on the first one. You want to ensure you can update and maintain your ENMS or your 50,001 energy management system. And it starts by ensuring that they require periodic reviews and updates are performed as planned. And you really just want to, in general, um, think about the how, the who, and the when have been established within your energy management system, and you take any appropriate actions to implement any reviews and update the processes that might not be in place. So, really going back and making sure that you've done the things you need to do for the other tasks as well. And then finally, you want to ensure the continual improvement of the ENMS. And so we've kind of discussed this a little bit when we talked about the monitoring and measurement of the NMS, and looking for any trends or anything that might be kind of repeated over and over, nonconformities, those type of things. Looking for that and looking for where you can improve the ENMS to try to prevent those nonconformities, to try to make it a little bit better. And again, even touching on action plans for continual improvement, it points out that you want to make sure that, again, you continually improve the suitability, adequacy, and effectiveness of the ENMS. And so those were kind of the two that I wanted to highlight from here. Because I know sometimes it's hard to think about how can I continually improve my energy management system, but it's really about making sure that it's adequate, effective, suitable, adequate, and effective. Again, we've got the decarbonization and details on how you can incorporate decarbonization if you would like. Really not a lot here to this one. It's just make sure that you've already included it in all the previous tasks. So, yeah, task 25 is really just kind of wrapping everything up and bringing it together. So, looking at the task 25 playbook here. Again, this is the same as getting it done that we just saw. And in here we've got this first thing to really kind of note is this reviews/process planning log. So in here we've got items to review, and it highlights all the items from ISO 50001 that it indicates that you should review in here. And there's even a spot where you can add more or other things that you'd like to review as part of your continual improvement. And then it indicates which task it's related to. Some, like the energy review, are related to multiple tasks. What section of ISO 50001 it's relevant to? A quick review description. So this is where you might want to add some additional information or put information in related to your organization, and then how often you want to look at that, and then who the lead is and the most recent update. And so this table can be really helpful. From here, you just want to kind of be able to confirm that the needed connections between the process of your EMS and how the organization manages change are in place. Obviously, you want to be able to say yes to these, that top management ensures a process in place to determine and address major changes affecting the energy management system and energy performance, that you've reviewed how changes are addressed in your organization's EMS and have confirmed that the processes for managing changes are that affect the EMS are implemented and working properly, and finally that the organization prioritizes robust and inclusive communication process that ensures relevant functions and personnel are informed, so appropriate actions can be taken. And then you want to ensure that changes affecting the EMS and energy performance are considered, and that those changes could include organization, technical, legal, competitiveness, etc. You want to make sure you review the processes for integrating your EMS requirements into the organization's business and operational practices. And you've got some checkboxes here. You will be able to say yes. Then you can provide additional information if you would like. And again, you want to confirm that top management promotes continual improvement as part of the organization's culture and meets and demonstrates those responsibilities. Um, so again, we talked about this when we talked about communication. It's mentioned even in task 4, but you just want to make sure that top management is responsible for really promoting that ideal of continual improvement. Really promoting that idea of energy performance improvement is important. And then finally, you want to ensure the process is in place to continually improve your ENMS and your energy performance. Um, so yeah, that's really all there is to this playbook. Are there any questions about task 25? All right. Well, I'm gonna go through the review questions real quick. Feel free to put your responses into the chat. So review question number 1 for task 22. For internal audit of your ENMS, apply for the internal audit of your ENMS, apply to what section of the plan, do, check, act cycle? A, plan, B, do, C, check, or D, act. So internal audits, task 22 applies to what part of the plan, do, check, act cycle? Please feel free to just go ahead and put your response in the chat. All right, I'm seeing a couple of responses. Okay. Yes, C is correct. It is the check part of the plan, do, check, act cycle. Review question number 2. Anything you invoke on yourself for your ENMS is audible under your internal auditing program. True or false? Yes, I'm seeing a lot of A's. That is correct. It is true. If you say you're gonna put the green jello in the cooling tower, you better be able to show that you put the green jello in the cooling tower. Question number 3. Who decides what planned intervals are for your internal audit? Uh, A, the U.S. Department of Energy. B, 50,001 Ready Task 22. C, third-party certification auditors. Or D, your organization. All right, I'm seeing a few responses. Anybody else? That is correct. It is D. Your organization determines what planned intervals are and how for those internal audits. Question number 4. To ensure objectivity and impartiality of the internal auditing process, personnel should not audit items they developed or worked on. True or false? Yes, I'm seeing a handful of A's. That is true. You should not be auditing items that you directly worked on or developed. Question number 5. Internal audit findings should be based on A, statements overheard at the water cooler. B, facts, direct observations, data, and evidence. C, the opinion of the environmental manager. Or D, an article from the local newspaper. All right, I'm seeing a couple of responses. Gonna wait and see. Okay, yep. That is correct. It is B. Internal audit findings should be based on facts, direct observations, data, and evidence. Which of the following could be considered a non-conformity? A. Your organization does not meet requirements of ISO 50001 standard. B. Your organization does not follow its own requirements. C. Your organization does not demonstrate energy improvement over time. Or D. All of the above. Um, the correct answer is D. Uh, all of the following are considered nonconformities. Question number 7. Top management does not really need to be involved in your energy management system. The energy team can handle this. True or false? Yes, I'm seeing a lot of falses. The energy team, top management does need to be involved in your energy management system. They need to be performing those management reviews. They need to be providing that leadership from the top down. Question number 8. Nonconformities require corrective actions. The organization must also evaluate the effectiveness of these actions. True or false? Seeing a lot of A's. C 1B. The correct answer is true. Um, Nonconformities that require corrective actions, you must also evaluate the effectiveness of those actions that were taken. Question number 9. The ISO 50001 standard requires which of the following relative to continual improvement? A, you should demonstrate continual improvement of your ENMS. B, demonstrate continual improvement of your energy performance. C, both A and B, or D, none of the above. I'm seeing a lot of C's. That is correct. You want to you want to be able to show continual improvement of both your ENMS and your energy performance. Uh, this is the last question I have for today. Question number 10, the plan, do, check, act cycle is a process, not a one-time project, and that process repeats over and over for continual improvement. True or false? Uh, all right, I'm seeing a lot of A's for true. That is correct. And I do see the comment in there that I need to come up with more food analogies. So I will work on some additional food analogies for some of the examples that I don't have a food analogy for. I do appreciate that. Thank you. So that's all I have for today on the review questions. So just doing a quick look ahead. So for session 8, we will just be kind of reviewing all 25 tasks again, doing that kind of high level overview of all the tasks, and then we'll talk about the process for becoming 50,001 ready recognized as well. So if anybody has any questions about that or is looking to become 50,001 ready recognized, we'll talk about that during the next session. Um, so here's the calendar. Oh, sorry. So we finished today of the ensuring continual improvement. And next time we will be talking about wrapping up and any next steps. And our next meeting will be on December the 11th. Um, so things to kind of work on from today's session 7. You want to make sure that the status of your tasks in the navigator are being kept up to date. If you haven't done so already, go ahead and download the blank playbooks from today's tasks 22 through 25. And we will be sending you some example playbooks that you can review as well. And then use those example playbooks to kind of create your own versions of your tasks 22 through 25 playbooks, and continue to work on finalizing the work that you have on the playbooks 1 through 21 if you have not yet already completed those. Some things to kind of do for preparation for session 8. Really, session 8 is going to be reviewing all 25 tasks. So think about any items that you would like to discuss or review, any questions that you might have. Come prepared to bring them for the group. I encourage people to come up with questions that they would like to ask to the whole group because you never know what kind of questions that you might be asking that other organizations might also have questions about, or maybe they've implemented something that could be helpful. So we can use that as kind of collaborative time to discuss anything between the various organizations if you guys would like. And then think about where you want to go from here and what the next steps for your organization are. Um, as a reminder, here is the schedule for our one-on-one calls. These appointments should already be on your calendar. But our next one-on-one calls are actually going to be next week on November 20th and 21st. So we did move that up a week from our normal cycle just because of Thanksgiving. So I look forward to talking to all of you guys next week. We will be reviewing any questions that you have on tasks 22 through 25, as well as anything on the previous tasks, if you have any of those questions. So I do have one last polling question for today. So after listening to today's webinar and having covered all the tasks 1 through 25 up to this point, how do you feel about implementing your 50,001 Ready based energy management system? A, you're still overwhelmed. B, overwhelmed but feeling better. C, cautiously optimistic. D, encouraged. Or E, ready to get ready. All right, love to see that, Sarah. Um, cautiously optimistic. Definitely, I think where a lot of people end up falling. D, encouraged. I love that too. I love the encouragement, the cautiously optimistic. You guys have all been great and doing really well with your ENMS so far. And I know you guys have all put in a lot of hard work. So as a reminder, we do have these links here that are helpful, as well as links, links for the 50,001 Ready, and then as well as links for your Clean Building Performance Standard that you can click through. Are there any questions? I do have quite a bit of time, so if anybody has any questions or anything they'd like to look at today, otherwise I can let you guys go a little bit early. All right, well, if there aren't any questions, as a reminder, feel free to reach out to me at any point in time. If anything comes up between now and our one-on-one calls, here's my information. You can give me a call or you can send me an email. If you do call me, please call me more than once because I do not answer numbers that I don't recognize or leave me a voicemail. But thank you guys, and that is all I have for today.